Hey, 皆さん、こんにちは. Today we'll be reading through an article about dinosaur eggs. Bit of a hard one, this one. Lots of kanji. Grammar's not so bad. Probably looking at JLPT N2, maybe N3, but because of the kanji, it's kind of at least N2, I would say. Anyway, let's get started. So first we'll have a read through of it. I would first recommend that you try and read it through yourself, and then if you're unsure about anything, you can play the video on that part and listen to how I read it. Of course, my previous video, I did talk about using browser extensions like Yomi-chan, Rikai-kun, all those kind of ones. So check out that video as well. And as always, like and subscribe for more content. Apparently, these videos and my conversation videos with Japanese natives are some of the more popular ones. But if there's any content at all you'd like to see, hit me up. 初期の恐竜の卵は柔らかかった。初の発見。定義、覆す。南極初の卵化石も巨大で柔らかかった。卵化石の論文がネイチャーに2報。Okay, we got our picture here. The caption. ムスサウルスの卵の化石。ムスサウルスは2億2700万から2億850万年前に今日のアルゼンチンにあたる地域に生息していた首の長い草食恐竜で体長は約6メートルだった。モンゴルの砂漠とアルゼンチンの高地で見つかった化石が恐竜のものとしては初めての発見となる柔らかい殻を持つ卵の化石だったことが判明した。そこから恐竜の産卵と子育てについて新たな要素が浮かび上がってきた。初期の恐竜は繁殖に関しては現代の爬虫類によく似ていて、産んだ卵は穴に埋め、その世話をすることはなかったようだ。この論文は6月17日付で学術誌ネイチャーに掲載された。ネイチャーの同じ号にはまた、南極大陸で初めて発見されたおそらく海生爬虫類のものと思われる柔らかい卵の化石についての論文も掲載されている。今回報告された卵化石はどれも保存状態の良さはもちろん存在すること自体が科学者たちを驚愕させるのに十分だった。米テキサス大学オースティン校の古生物学者で片方の論文の共著者であるジュリア・クラーク氏は、天と地には私たちの想像を絶するものがあるのですと話す。硬い卵ばかりだった。これまでの数十年間で発見された恐竜の卵はいずれも硬い殻を持っていた。恐竜の唯一の北子孫である現代の鳥類の卵と同じだ。鳥の卵の殻が硬いのは炭酸カルシウムの層が含まれているからで、そのおかげで親鳥は卵の上に乗って抱卵することができる。古生物学者たちは恐竜も同じような戦略をとっていたと想像していた。しかし、これまでに見つかっている恐竜の卵のほとんどが恐竜の進化の後期にあたる白亜紀のものであり、初期の恐竜の卵は見つかっていなかった。今回の発見でその理由が分かった可能性がある。初期の恐竜の卵は柔らかくて皮のような殻だったため分解してしまい化石化しにくかったと考えられるのだ。今回の2つの研究は恐竜や古代の爬虫類の繁殖に関して多くの知識を授けてくれる。化石記録は骨格だけではありませんと、両方の論文を査読したスウェーデン・ルンド大学の古生物学者ヨハン・リンドグレン氏は話す。氏は古代の海生爬虫類の脂肪など化石化した軟組織を分析している。 時にそれ以上のものが見つかることがあります。Alright, so a lot of tricky words in here, of course. We're talking, it's a kind of a sciencey article, of course, so got a lot of technical terms in here. But we got, we'll go through using this Rikai-chan. But first we got shoki, alright, so this is a, ki is basically a period. So shoki is like the early ages, early period. Okay, so obviously dinosaurs lived for quite a long time, and it's talking about the kind of early dinosaurs. And we actually get a link to the period they're talking about, because they give us a year, okay, over here. But they also give us the name of the era that they think it's from, okay, the Hakuaki, the Cretaceous period. Okay, so that's what they're kind of talking about. All right, so Curious has got to come up quite a lot in this article. It's about dinosaurs, of course. And I think this is a very literal translation even of the English word dinosaur, because I think dinosaur means scary lizard as well, something like that. And Kyo is also meaning scary in Japanese. And Ryu is dragon in this case, but pretty close, I guess. And we've got Tamago, which is really what this whole article is about. So really talking about our eggs. And then yawarakakatta. All right, kind of an interesting one here. We see this sometimes, right? When we have our e adjectives, yawarakai, and it has a ka in there. But when we want to make our past form, we also have to change the e to katta. So we get like another ka in there. We have to say both. Yawarakakatta. All right, not so hard with this word, but with other words like atatakakatta, stuff like that, it gets a bit harder to say. Anyway, so yawarakakatta. So the early period dinosaurs' eggs were yawarakakatta, were soft. And then hatsu no hakken, so it's like a first discovery, first discovered now. This is why this is interesting. It's just been discovered. And then we have a bit of a set phrase here, but we have, this says, sorry it's a bit cut off there, but it says teisetsu, which is our established theory. Like this kanji, first kanji here is sadameru. Okay, this is to kind of fix something, determine something like that. And setsu is a theory. So teisetsu is an established theory, right? One that's been set ahead of time. So this is, in all honesty, this is not a word I think I actually knew. But I knew these kanji separately, and it was pretty obvious to me that teisetsu meant an established theory. But we've also got this combination here, which is a bit of a tricky one. I would say this is really getting into N1 territory here. And I know that because I saw it on my N1 exam. But anyway, but it's kutsugaesu. Okay, and kutsugaesu means to overturn something, and it's often used in the sense of like overturning a decision. So you hear it a lot in court decisions, right? If you appeal something and then the higher court overturns the decision of the lower court, they'll call that's a kutsugaesu. But here we see it's talking about a scientific theory being overturned as well. And just as an aside, when this came up in the N1 exam, it was in the first section, right? The gengo chishiki kind of thing. And it does that thing where it shows you the word. So in this case, kutsugaesu. And then it gives you 4 sentences where it uses kutsugaesu in each of them. And you have to pick the best usage of that word. And I hate these types of questions. In the N1, they can get very tricky because really you have to know that word specifically, its nuances, and that's quite hard to do. And when you're considering the amount of words you have to know for N1, it's kind of hard to know every word in detail. I mean, sometimes even just reading the word can be hard. But anyway, and I remember one of the entries in there it was about, the correct answer was the court thing, right? It was some kind of court-related question, overturning the decision. But I also remember that it had a question in there about a boat being capsized. And, you couldn't use it for that situation, I don't think. So anyway, it's just kind of to show you the kind of stuff you have to think about if you're thinking about JLPT. Anyway, so basically the fact that this egg is soft, this dinosaur egg is soft is like a brand new discovery, and it kind of, the discovery of this kind of overturns the previous thinking. I was watching something else on dinosaurs recently, by the way, and there was a paleontologist there, someone who basically studies dinosaurs, And he pointed out something which I think is always important to remember about when you think about dinosaurs, is that not much really survives of dinosaurs, right? We might get their skeletons, and even then, we're not going to get a complete skeleton a lot of the time, you know. For a fossil to be preserved, it's very, very rare. So you're not going to get much, especially after hundreds of millions of years. And especially soft tissues are generally not going to survive. And that's what this word kaseki fossil in Japanese is interesting, because we see the first kanji is bakeru, right? This is to change. The ka is bakeru. And seki is a rock, right? And because this is really kind of what fossilization is, in my understanding, is that the animal dies, and when the fossilization process starts, actually I think all the, I'm not sure of the correct word here, I don't think it's atoms, but the elements kind of swap. And so that's why it turns into rock, because I think that the calcium, I really shouldn't say this without looking it up, but I think the calcium gets replaced, right? And so it turns into a like petrified rock or whatever. So that's why it survives. Otherwise, it's all too soft and bacteria or whatever will eat it or something like that. But anyway, that's kind of an interesting thing about Japanese sometimes. I'm sure fossil means kind of a similar thing in probably Latin or something. But anyway, that's what you can get from here. All right. So anyway, so this paleontologist was saying that it's so hard to know about dinosaurs because all we really have are some random bones, and we can kind of make some inferences and make some guesses, but it's very hard to say when none of the organs survive, for example. How can we really talk about what a dinosaurs do, you know, if they don't survive? Anyway, so we got Nankyoku, which is the South Pole, right? Antarctica, basically. And we've got Hatsuno, and then we got this, won't come up here, I don't think, but this is Ran Kaseki, okay? So a fossilized egg. And you can remember this, the onyomi of this through words like ichiransei, it's our identical twins, niransei, our fraternal twins. That's how I remember that anyway. So the first fossilized egg on Antarctica, mo kyodai de, so it's really big, and yawarakakata, and very soft. Rankaseki no ronbun, now this is going to come up a few times as well. This is basically their thesis, their kind of the thing that the scientists are suggesting, and then nature. All right, so this is just the name of, I mean, it's the word nature, but it's the name of an academic peer-reviewed science journal, okay? Pretty prestigious as far as I know. And then Niho, and I think you can kind of think of this as a report or something like, it's just a counter for two pieces of information that has been taught. It's the Hall from Johor. All right, but we've got the two of these theses are in nature. All right, so this is kind of recent as well. So this is a picture of it, and it's our Mususaurus. Okay, we got some pictures of it. I'm no paleontologist, so I couldn't really tell you, but here we go. It's kind of a long-necked dinosaur. Kind of looks like this, apparently. All right, so Tamago no Kaseki, the egg of this thing. And so we have Nioku Nisen Nanyakuma. All right, so this is quite a big number. So the quickest way to think about this is that Oku is 100 million. Okay, so Nioku, 200 million. And then we know we got a 10,000 here. So we're really doing 2,700 times 10,000. All right, so it's quite a big number, but really you just got to write these numbers out and count the zeros, okay? But at least we're dealing with 200 million years ago, quite some time ago. And then kyono Argentin ni ataru. Okay, so Argentin, this is Argentina. Then ni ataru chiiki. Now, really what this is saying is obviously Argentina is kind of a recent thing when you kind of consider about the lifespan of the Earth, right? So when the dinosaurs were alive, they were in what we now call Argentina, okay? So that's what this chiiki is, a region, okay? So it's basically the place where we found them is what we would now call the region, is part of the region of Argentina. And so it's like a bit of a tricky word, but this is to inhabit or live. Now, my understanding of this word is that it's only for animals. You can't use this for humans. And then kubi no nagai, well, we obviously saw this in the pictures just then, some long-necked dinosaurs. And then soushoku, okay, this is our, this is kusa, all right, this is grass. So soushoku, eating grass, and kyoryu, all right, so herbivorous, I keep saying dragon, herbivorous dinosaur. There, okay, so we're just kind of joining our nouns. Taicho, all right, kind of a not super useful word, but we have karada. I mean, we can read this as karada no nagasa if we want. Okay, it's the length of the body. Yaku is approximately, so 6 metaru, right? So relatively big dinosaur, I guess, compared to humans, I guess. So 6 metaru. This is 画像のクリックで拡大表示. Alright, so if we click on it, it'll zoom in. Alright, so モンゴルの砂漠. Alright, so the Mongolian desert とアルゼンチンの高地. Now, 高地 is our, basically our, it says high ground or plateau. I think of this as like the highlands, right? Argentina is obviously a little bit mountainous. Okay, and of course we're talking about quite a long time ago, so I'm guessing obviously Mongolia and Argentina are not really joined, but they probably were at some point. Pangea or whatever those big land masses used to be called. So アルゼンチンの高地で見つかった Okay, so to be found. Kasekiga, so a fossil found, or fossils, I guess, here, because obviously, if we're finding them in Mongolian desert and Argentina, there must have been multiple ones. Ga, kyoryu no mono toshite. Now this, when I do this with my students, a lot of people ask me what toshite is. I never really found a great explanation for it, but tosuru, it's kind of like this, saying it's this thing. So kyoryu no mono, well, when we find an egg, we don't necessarily know whose egg it is. Okay, but they can do some, look, I don't know. This paleontologist probably able to tell you a bit better than me. But, obviously we got the sedimentary layers, right? So we can go, well, where do we find this egg? Oh, it's in this sedimentary layer. This layer was laid down hundreds of millions of years ago, so it's probably a dinosaur egg, right? So they kind of did some analysis of it, and they're like, okay, well, it's the first thing recognized or whatever, something like that. So as dinosaurs thing, kyoryu no mono, hajimete no hakken to naru. So it's the first discovery of a dinosaur's object, which is fossilized. Well, the fossils in the highlands of Argentina and the Mongolian desert. All right, and so what is the first thing what is this first discovery? Well, it's yawarakai kara. Okay, now kara is our shell, or it means some kind of outer covering, but when we talk about eggs, it's read as kara. Okay, so yawarakai kara, soft shell, kara, or motsu tamago. All right, so motsu is basically possessing in some sense, right? So having an egg with having a soft shell. No kaseki datta koto. So again, they discovered it, did some analysis, and then they announced it in this journal, right? So no kaseki datta, that they found it in the big koto ga hanmei shite. Now hanmei is just established, so again, it's gone through the kind of, I guess, scientific process. Some expert has looked at it, and they're like, based on all these things we can see about the egg, we can say that it's a dinosaur egg. There's soko kara, so basically from that, right, the discovery of this egg, realizing it's a soft egg and realizing it's a dinosaur egg, kyoryu no sanran. Now this is not the most useful word you'll ever know, but sanran, this is umu, basically, it's to produce something. And it's often used with birth, okay, humans as well. But sanran is, the production of eggs, basically. To, and then kosorate. Now, this is really just kodomo and sorateru, which is to raise or rear something. So kosorate is child rearing. Okay, so it's, again, no real difference between humans and non-humans. Nitsuite, so about the egg production and raising of children, of dinosaurs. aratana yoso. Okay, so it's an aspect, right? So a different part of it, right? We know some parts maybe already, or we've guessed at some parts, but then we get new information and then we kind of learn this new part about it. So that's yoso ga. And then ukabiagatte kita. Now, ukabu, this is kind of three verbs together, but the first one is ukabu, which is to float. And then agaru is to kind of rise up. So ukabi agaru is something rises up. So we see it's our verb stem here and then our tef form, because then kita is kind of like, it's kind of come to this spot, right? It's, we didn't know about it. We found this new egg, and now this kind of new idea has kind of come up to the surface. It's come into the public consciousness or something like that. This new aspect has come in at least. So shoki no kyora, so early dragons. I'm not going to stop saying it. I just see the kanji ryu and I want to read it as dragon. But early dinosaurs, wa? We got this word hanshoku, again, not super useful, but this is breeding, okay? Again, not sure you're allowed to use this with humans, but especially you can use it with animals and insects and stuff. But hanshoku ni kanjite wa, so in regards to the reproduction, gendai no hachuru, right? So gendai is different from our kodai, which we had earlier somewhere. But gendai is the modern age, right? The current age. And then we have this word, again, not super useful, but hachurui is reptiles, all right, as we can see there. So gendai no hachurui, the modern day reptiles, ni yoku niteite, all right, so it resembles them very well. Unda tamago wa ana ni ume, so the spawned eggs are buried in a hole, ana ni ume. Sono sewa, now sewa is care, right? So we're talking about basically the parents taking care of their children. Sono sewa suru koto wa nakatta yoda. Again, I'd really have to read the paper to know this for sure, but my understanding is that they look at these eggs, right? And they're like, oh, these are really similar to modern day reptile eggs. And then from that they go, well, how do modern day reptiles treat their eggs? Well, modern day reptiles basically, we're talking about, I guess, turtles and, I don't know, kinds of things like this, where they just lay a huge, they spawn a huge hatch of eggs or whatever you call it, right? Hundreds of eggs. And then, ana ni ume, they bury them in a hole to kind of protect them from predators. But then, sewa o suru koto wa nakatta. So, sewa suru koto wa nai. They don't take care of them. And, if you've seen nature documentaries and things, turtles don't, as far as I know. They kind of bury them, they kind of come ashore, bury them on the beach, and then they just go back into the ocean, and then the turtles just hatch. And as soon as they hatch, they just kind of, I don't know, instinct or something, they just smell the sea and they just go right into the sea. And it's the same with like crocodiles as well, I think. Anyway, so they're kind of making, again, it's kind of this problem. We don't have that much evidence, but from the evidence we have, we can kind of make these links to modern day things. All right. So they're kind of saying, it seems like these eggs are similar to reptile eggs. So we're kind of assuming that maybe dinosaurs treated their eggs and child rearing and stuff similar to modern day reptiles. All right. So kono ronbun wa, right? So basically this idea, or these ideas I just mentioned, wa 6月17日付. So the Gakujutsushi is our academic journal, right? This nature one I mentioned before. So the Academic Journal of Nature dated the 17th of June. And keisai is a bit of a fancy word, but this is to publish something, particularly articles in newspapers and stuff. But here, obviously, it's in the journal. And then sareta from sareru, which is just our passive. So it was published in this thesis was published in this publication. And then we have onaji go, all right? So this is an addition, okay? So basically in the same, I think they're called issues, right? With journals, you have volumes and then you have issues. So in the same issue, mata, so like basically on top of that, Nankyoku Tairiku, right? So again, Antarctica, de hajimeta hakken zareta. So for the first time discovered in Antarctica, osoraku kaisei hachurui no mono. All right, so they think it was kaisei is basically a marine something. I don't know why that's not coming up here, but kaisei is marine, hachurui, so marine reptiles. I don't know if these are amphibians. My science is not great, but osaraku is probably. So, mono to omareru yawarakai tamago no saki ni tsuite no bubu mo kaisei, right? So they're kind of saying, well, we found some stuff in Antarctica, which is thought to be a marine reptile's soft egg fossil. And that was also in there. So, 今回報告された, so this time, so they're talking about thing that's just happened, right? So in the nature thing. And 報告 is just to announce something, really, to report something. された卵草木はどれも, so both of them, all right? Or all of them, all the ones that they've published on. We have 保存状態. So, yeah, we can say preservation here. And 状態 is a status. So, 保存状態. So, the state of preservation, no, 良さ, okay? Which is the goodness of something, comes from yoi. And, wa mochiron. All right, so they're kind of saying, of course, the kind of goodness of the preservation must have been good, right? Because otherwise it wouldn't have survived. And then 存在すること. All right, so now we see we're kind of going a bit higher, saying just the existence of it. 存在すること. And then 自体. All right, so basically the mere fact of existence itself, ga. All right, so this is the thing that 科学者たち, so really scientists, and then this is a bit of a tricky word, but 驚愕させる. All right, it was basically, it surprised the mere existence of this egg, let alone the quality of preservation, right? The good state that it's in was enough, right? This is a bit of a tricky one. 十分, you read this as here. So 十分 is sufficient. A lot of you might be going, wait, isn't this 10分? Yes, same kanji. And we see it's the second entry there. We can read as 10分 or 10分, which means 10 minutes. Don't ask me why they decided to do this, but yeah, I remember this happened in a Japanese exam once, and I was lucky enough that I got it, but a lot of people in class were very confused by this reading as jubun. Anyway, so it was enough. Of course, a really good preservation is going to surprise scientists because it's so old and it's soft. This is the key, right? It's soft, but also just it existing at all is enough to surprise scientists, right? Let alone it being in such good condition. That's what they're getting in there. Now, this is our kanji for America, and then Tekisasu Daigaku, so Texas University, Austin course, so the Austin campus, I guess this is, no Kosei Butsugakusha, so I think it's paleontologist, right? Yeah, the paleontologist there. Kataho no ronbun no kyō chosha de aru. All right, so the other Kataho no ronbun is the other thesis, the next one side of the thesis. And then kyo chosha, again, not the most useful word, but a chosha is an author of generally a book or something, like it's got there, a writer. But kyo chosha, kyo is to join, really, with something, to do something together with someone. So kyo chosha, the joint author, de aru, Julia Kurakushi, right? So Ms. Julia Clark wa, ten tochi ni wa, so in between heaven and earth. This is a bit of a set phrase. I mean, I'd like to see what she actually said. This might be a bit of a paraphrase. I don't know. But ten tochi is quite a common phrase in Japanese, I feel. But so basically between heaven and earth, or between the sky and earth, or basically the universe is really what she's getting here. Watashi nachi no souzou zessuru. All right, so zessuru means you can't even think about it. It kind of escapes you. Mono ga aru no desu. All right, so basically there's still so many things that we can't even imagine that exist in the heaven. That are existing. We just got to find them on earth somewhere. Tohanaso, this is what she said. Okay, so obviously it's quite the groundbreaking discovery, apparently. All right, so katai tamago. All right, so this is obviously different from our yawarakai tamago. Bakari, okay? So when we have bakari after a noun like this, it means kind of that first one, but the fifth entry there, nothing but. Okay, so basically, scientists apparently believed that dinosaurs only had hard. We were only ever going to find hard eggs, or that the dinosaurs had hard eggs, or something like that. All right, so we're showing this is the past tense, and again, when we had kutsugaesu, right, this has been overturned. So koremade, okay, so up until now, no suju nenkan, and this is just another way of saying decades, a few decades. The hakken sareta kyoryu no tamago wa, so all the eggs that we've found up until now, izure mo, all right, basically all of them, katai kara o motte ita, they all had hard shells, hard exteriors. Kyoryu no, and then we had this bit of fancy word, yuitsu, which is solely, it's kind of this word uniquely. No ikita shison de aru, all right, and shison is kind of descendants or offspring, I guess. So what's it getting here? Well, we see when we keep reading on, it says gendai no chorui no tamago to onaji da. So it's the same as bird eggs, modern bird eggs, and they're saying that the kyoryu no yuitsu no ikita shison, so the sole living descendant of dinosaurs, is the birds, right? So they're kind of saying it's the egg the eggs that they used to find seem to be more like bird eggs, and that kind of makes sense because we know that birds are heavily related to dinosaurs. But tori no tamago no kara ga katai no wa, and then we got tansan calcium, right? So we see tansan is carbonate, right? It's basically the bubbles in soft drinks and stuff. That's what tansan you can think of. And calcium, all right, calcium, so CaCO3. So the bird eggs are made of calcium carbonate, or at least they have a layer, right? So they have a layer of calcium carbonate. Fukumarete. Okay, so it's included. So they have other layers, but one of the layers is calcium carbonate. And then karade. So because bird eggs have this layer of calcium carbonate, they're hard. And sono kagede, due to this, oyadori, bit of a tricky one to read maybe, but what? Tamago no ue ni notte. Okay, so the parent birds obviously lay the eggs, and then ue ni notte, get on top of it. And then again, not a super useful word, but horan. All right, this is incubate. Now, again, I'm almost certain I didn't know this word before I read this article. But again, I can look at this kanji, and I know that this first one is it's a daku or something like that, right? It means to hug something. And the right side of this has got a strong onyomi of ho, so it doesn't really matter what the radical is, but. And then obviously we got run. So yeah, I was like horan. I was like hugging eggs. Okay, it's obviously like, yeah, it's kind of to envelop something. It's not just hugging. It's kind of to hold it. So yeah, horan suru. I was like, okay, that's probably incubation. Okay, so that's just trying to show you that, you don't have to know. I'll go into an article like this and basically expect that I'm not going to know every single word. But I'm pretty confident that I'm going to know every single kanji, and they're individually at least. And then when I put them together, I can kind of use, I have a lot of experience now in reading kanji words, but I just kind of put those two meanings together and think, oh, what are they trying to get at? What's the context? Okay, to me it was pretty obvious, especially with the ue ni notte before it. And then koto ga dekiru. All right, so obviously, if you have soft eggs, you can't really get on top of something. So they're going to break, right? So they're trying to point out that that's the thing. All right, so then we've got our paleontologists wa kyoryu mo onaji yona senyaku o totte ita o souzou shite ita. Okay, so fair enough, and I mentioned this before, but you don't have a lot of evidence to go off when you're a paleontologist. So they kind of looked at it and like, well, if the birds are the only living descendants of dinosaurs, we can probably say that most things that birds do, dinosaurs probably did. It's a fair assumption, I guess. Okay, and so senryaku is a strategy, right? Tactics. Okay, so they're kind of saying, well, let me say it again. Dinosaurs probably were doing the same strategy, right? Souzou shite ita. We thought that, right? We imagined that they did. Then shikashi, however, koremare ni mitsukatte iru kyoryu no tamago no hotondo ga. So up until now, the eggs that had been discovered, and then hotondo ga, so the most of the eggs which have been discovered up until now, kyoryu no shinka no koki, okay? And shinka, this is evolution, okay? And koki is kind of different from shoki. All right, shoki is like the initial early period, and koki is the later period. Ni ataru, then hakuaki, again, not a word we really need to know about the Cretaceous period. I mean, it really is just the onyomi of this kanji, but yeah. And then this is just a geological period. You also see it in like seiki, the 21st century, Niju is seiki, the 21st century, that kind of thing. Anyway, no mondari, right? So they kind of found all these eggs before. They found lots of dinosaur eggs, but all these eggs were from the end of the dinosaurs' evolution. And then, but now we found one which is from the beginning. So shoki no kyoryu no tamago mitsukatte inakatta, okay? So they go even further and say we didn't even find any eggs from the beginning. Okay, so maybe when they say hotondo here, they're kind of saying they found some from the middle, maybe. They found some from the middle, they found some from the end, but none from the beginning. Then konkai no hakken desu, so this discovery of these soft eggs from the beginning, sono ryu ga wakatta kanosei ga aru. All right, so when we try and work out stuff like this, it sometimes helps to go from the back and find the clauses. So aru, ga, well, we're pointing at something, and then we see we've got a different word here. So this is a bit of a phrase here. Kanosei ga aru. There is a possibility, there is a likelihood. This word is possibility, really. So kanosei ga aru, there is a possibility. Sono ryu ga wakatta. Well, again, ryu and ga are joined here, and sono is obviously joined. So sono ryu ga wakatta. So the reason and what ryu ga wakaru, to understand the reason, right? So sono ryu ga wakatta. So the reason why we have basically we didn't find soft eggs. There is a likelihood, right? We have a hypothesis, right? What is it? Well, shoki no kyoryu no tamago wa yawarakakute. So the early period eggs were soft. Kawa no yona kara datta tame. All right, and so different to what we saw up here, which our bird eggs, which were hard and they had a hard layer of calcium carbonate included within them. They're saying, well, these early dinosaur eggs are more like leather. And I probably shouldn't say leather, it's more, animal hide is really what I'm going for here. Because, I mean, that's what leather really is. But leather, I guess, is treated animal hide. So, kawa no yona kara. Okay, so it's kind of basically it's a soft animal hide egg thing, right? Rather than the calcium carbonate thing. Datatame, all right? So basically due to it being a much more softer material, whatever, bunkai shite shimai. All right, now bunkai is something breaks down, all right? And then shite shimai, this comes from our shite shimau, okay? And this thing's basically something happens unintentionally or something happens completely, probably a bit of a mixture of both here. But of course, we're talking about the calcium carbonate layer in the eggs or whatever, helps them survive because those calcium carbonate ions or whatever molecules can be switched out in the fossilization process. But if we've got some more organic matter like animal hide or something, it's not really no soft parts are really gonna survive at all. Okay, because they break down. I think oxygen. If there's any oxygen in there, bacteria is going to get in, and that's it. Over hundreds of millions of years, this stuff bacteria is going to eat all of them. So kaseki ka. Now this is a kind of interesting word because we see ka is to change into something, right? So kaseki ka is like the fossilization process. And then shinikukata. All right. So this is the past form of, we can see there, shinikui, which is hard to do something, right? So kaseki ka, shinikui, hard to fossilize. Shinikukata, it was hard to fossilize, all right? So again, we've got this problem with dinosaur fossils in that it's exceedingly rare that any dinosaurs even got fossilized at all. I mean, it's really a miracle that we have as many as we do. There's plenty of interesting books on this, but it's hard. It's hard for things to fossilize. No pun intended. But the fact that we have any is possible. But then when we have added complications where now the eggs themselves are soft, they're not going to fossilize either. So, 考えられる. Now, this is the passive voice. All right. So, it was thought that the early eggs were made of some kind of leather material, and so they're going to break down, and so we'll never find them. All right. I guess this has kind of come about where they're going, well, we find these eggs, these hard eggs, and we know they're dinosaur eggs, but when we date them, we find that they're always near the end of the period. Why can't we ever find any soft eggs? Or why can't we find any eggs from the early period? And you could be that, okay, we just haven't found them yet. We got to look in different places maybe, but you would kind of expect that we would have found them by now. You know, a lot of people look for these things. So the fact that we didn't find any probably led some people to believe, well, they were probably soft. Okay, they were soft and therefore they didn't, you know, kaseki ka ni shinukukatta. All right, they didn't ever fossilize. That's kind of what they're going with here. All right, so 今回の2つの研究, so this time's 2 pieces of research here. 恐竜や古代の爬虫類, right? So our ancient reptiles. の繁殖, so the reproduction of these animals. に関して, in regards to this. 多くの知識, so a lot of knowledge or information. を授けてくれる. Now, 授ける is kind of an interesting word. It means to like bestow something, to kind of give it to someone, but you know, they're kind of saying this like gift, right, of these soft eggs. It makes you, you know, once you've got the evidence and you can look at it, you can think about how it came about, all right? And so we get all these new insights just from the presence of finding these eggs. That's what they're trying to get at. And kureru, right? It's kind of done for us. It gives us this favor. All right, so obviously we've got our quote here. So we have kaseki kiroku. This is our fossil record. Kiroku is a record or something. Well, and we have this word kokkaku, which is basically skeleton. Dake de wa arimasen. Okay, so dake de wa nai, you know, kind of thing. So it's not, the fossil record is not just bones, all right, or skeletons, I guess is what they're trying to get at here, which is, you know, obviously this is what a lot of people's image of the fossil record is. But again, we go to this problem of, well, what's going to survive from the dinosaurs? Their skin's not going to survive. You know, a lot of their burrows and stuff are probably not going to survive, or whatever they used to live in, but the hard stuff will survive. But the hard things are not just the bones. We're going to see that they're eggs as well. So, to this, and also, 両方の論文を査読したスウェーデンルンド大学の古生学部ヨン・リンドグリーン氏は話す. Right? So this guy is saying that the fossil structure is not just bones, as this guy from Lund University, I'm probably not saying that right, but Lund University in Sweden, who peer-reviewed both of the theses, said that. Now, I'm not sure if this is correct. I would say that Rindgren is supposed to go in front of this. I don't think you can just say she. But I asked my Japanese friend, and I'll... All right. So this is actually fine. My Japanese friend got back to me. So I'll just read off what he said. So he said, これは合っている。名前を忘れているように見えるけど. Okay, so it looks like they've forgotten the name. Okay, this is what I thought when I looked on my, have they forgotten the name? And then it says, しは時々このように省略することもあるよ, right? So sometimes you shorten things down like this, right? You just leave the she there. This is just a kind of a neutral way to say Mr. Because son obviously is an honorific thing, right? So you can just say she. しが明らかに誰のことかわかるときはね. Okay? So as long as we know who the she is. So, of course, they just introduced the person in the previous line. Johan Lindgren. Okay, kind of a very typical Swedish name there. Okay, so obviously they've introduced who it is, so that it's not unclear who this she belongs to. And then he says, でも他の継承ではこのような省略はあまり見ない. Alright, so you don't see it with the other types of honorific suffixes. So for example, he says, 例えば、様、さんなどは このような省略した使い方はしない。Alright? So you only really use it with this she. So there you go. I learned something new today. So she は個性の海生爬虫類の脂肪. Now, 脂肪 is just fat, okay? The body fat of something. など, okay? So the ancient marine reptiles fat, など. Okay, so he doesn't really know, right? He's saying, well, this is one thing which apart from bones might fossilize. 化石化した, and then we have, this is non-soshiki. Now, soshiki is like a tissue or something, a structure. And this is non, which is, yeah, if you think of non-kotsu and stuff like that, it's soft. So obviously we have our soft tissues in English. So our soft tissues are 分析している, right? So this person is analyzing soft tissue structures which have somehow been fossilized. And for example, ancient marine reptile fat, which to me kind of makes sense because when you start talking about fats, lipids, they don't dissolve quite the same way that non-lipids do. So I guess it makes more sense that they would survive in the fossilization process somehow. Toki ni, so this is like incidentally, それ以上のものが見つかることがあります. Okay? So again, he said nado, things like the fat. He's not ruling out that other things might be found. All right. And then that's the end of the article. Okay, so obviously a bit of a tricky one here, but interesting scientific discovery nonetheless. And this is kind of straight up fact-based reporting, okay? So this is good for N2. You'd have to be able to understand this stuff for N2. N1, though, you're not really going to get these types of articles, okay? This is a bit too, in a word, straightforward for N1. They're not really... N1 is all about the author's voice, right? Like, what does the author really mean? Or when they say this, do they mean this, or this, right? You have to kind of read between the lines a lot more. This is like a news report, you know, it's very straight up information. So it's good, obviously, to use it to practice vocab and stuff. But if you're looking for N1 practice, this is not really the kind of stuff you want to be reading. You want to be reading the opinion section and all that in newspapers or whatever. Or you want to be reading books where they wax lyrical about societal problems or whatever. But this is a bit too fact-based. So yeah, N2, vocab is too hard for N3, I would say. But anyway, that gives you an idea of this type of article. Anyway, if you found this useful, I'd really appreciate a like on the video. You know, just go ahead, just like it. You know, it doesn't cost you anything. It really helps my videos get a bit more exposure. And send it to your friends if you found this video good. And like I said, if you anything in particular you want to see me do, leave a comment below. Just tell me what it is you want to see. Do you want to see more JLPT stuff? Do you want me to be reading articles like this? Whatever it is. I hope to tee up some new conversations with some Japanese friends of mine pretty soon. So yeah, anything you'd like to hear, some perspectives on Japan or whatever, let me know. And I'll do my best to do it. Up until then though, じゃあね。